Angela Rayner, what can you tell us about the situation in Syria this morning?
Well, the situation looks very serious, and if Assad regime has fallen, then I welcome that news. But what we need to see is a political resolution in line with the UN resolutions, and we need to see civilians and infrastructure protected. Far too many people have lost their lives. We need stability in that region.
I'm interested in what you said about welcoming news, but before we do that, before I ask you about that, what do we know about British citizens in there? The number, their safety, anything that we should know about?
Well, the Foreign Secretary and obviously our Foreign Office are working. You'll have heard last week the Foreign Secretary was very clear about UK civilians leaving Syria. We've had a plan to ensure that people were evacuated ahead of what's happened over the weekend, and we continue to support our UK nationals.
OK. Well, you've been pretty clear you're glad to see the back of Assad, but how concerned are you about what might happen next?
Well, this is why we want to see the UN resolution implemented and a political solution. Syrians deserve to live in peace and safety, and that's what we want to see implemented. So civilians must be protected, and, of course, the infrastructure that is so desperately needed as well.
Well, of course, one of the reasons that we are always concerned about this is that the results land up on our shore. There are millions of refugees who've already left Syria, and some of them turn up in Europe, some turn up here. Have you any concerns about that? And what would we do if Syrian refugees start turning up here?
Well, as I said, if Assad has fallen and that regime is over, I welcome that. He wasn't exactly good to the Syrian people. So we want to see a political resolution so that we can get that stability for Syrians and make sure that they have the infrastructure so that they have a political government there that is working in the interest of the Syrian people. That's what we need long-term for the area, and that hopefully working with our allies in the UN will be able to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, but nobody can predict what's going to happen. But of course, we've in some senses been here before, and there is a, let's call it a frying pan and fire situation here. At least one of the forces that are entering Damascus used to be an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. Is there a danger here that we're exchanging at least a stable, unpleasant regime for something worse?
Well, that's why we've got to keep pushing with our UN resolution and our allies to make sure that, look, dictatorship and terrorism creates problems for the people of Syria who have faced so much already, and also destabilises the region. That's why we have to have a political solution where the government is acting in the interests of the Syrian people. That's what we want to see. That's the type of democracy that we say is right for the world, and that hopefully is what the Syrian people will get. If Assad has gone, that's a welcome change, but what comes next has to be a political solution, and they have to be working in the interests of the Syrian people.
How optimistic are you that, unlike some other situations where it's led to instability, I'm thinking, for example, Libya, that this might be an opportunity for something new in the region?
Well, as I said, Assad wasn't exactly good for the Syrian people. Let's hope that working with the UN, working with our allies, we can get a government in Syria that is working in the interests of the Syrian people, and we can show that democracy does work and that people of Syria deserve to feel safe and have the basic services and liberties that people like ourselves have.
And if the new regime, whatever it is, appeals to us for help with refugees, with support and so forth, we're going to be open to that, are we?
Well, the Foreign Secretary will be, the Prime Minister is in the region over the next couple of days, and the Foreign Secretary will continue to work with our allies and make sure that we do, as we always do, support people across the world.
All right, let's turn to some domestic issues. And I want to focus on understanding how you plan to give effect to the Prime Minister's 6 milestones. And by the way, just to save you the trouble of repeating them all, we're going to put them up graphically during the interview, so you don't have to tell me what they all are. Viewers will be seeing them all.
There's mine, 1.5 million new homes. There you go, that's mine.
I'm so happy you want to talk about that. That milestone has not been achieved since 1972.
Yeah.
And since that year, there have been 28 predecessors in your job, including 2 Deputy Prime Ministers, Heseltine and Prescott. They all failed. What are you going to do that they didn't?
Well, just to contextualise it even more, Trevor, is that to ramp it up to the rate that I need to meet that target, we haven't seen house building like that since the 1950s, after the Second World War. So it is a stretch target.
I think that was Mr Macmillan was the last time this
Absolutely.
happened.
But look, this is why the Prime Minister says we're going to make sure that we streamline planning. I'm coming forward this next week with our National Planning Policy Framework, which I consulted on, which is going to be tough and put clarity in the planning system. I've told local authorities they have to have a local plan. That means councillors and local people will decide what the general plan is for their area, and then I'm going to streamline planning. We just can't carry on like this. You know, we're not getting the development we need, we're not getting the houses we need. We've got 8 times the average income for first-time buyers. People are priced out of getting a home, and I'm determined to change it. And Trevor, I've been underestimated quite a lot in my life, and I wouldn't allow the Prime Minister to put that target up there if I didn't think I could meet it. And I'm determined to do it, because having a home is not just about a home, it's about security, it's about a job, it's about raising a family, and far too many people now can't do that.
There is never going to be any underestimation of Angela Rayner in this studio. So let's just start from this point. If we are talking in 4 years' time, can you guarantee you're going to be able to say, Trevor, done it?
I'm determined to make sure by the end of this Parliament that I meet that target. I hate failure, Trevor, and that target is my target, so I've got to deliver it. But it does mean that we're going to have to make real changes to the planning system.
Yep.
We've already put $5 billion next year into additional funding into housing, $500 million into affordable homes. There has to be lots of different parts of the system that works, and that includes, and I want to reassure people listening to this, infrastructure.
Well, I want to come to all that. Let's come to all that. And let's just deal with this lovely word that you've just used, streamlining.
Yes.
I see the Prime Minister this morning is saying that local councils will get more powers, but they will also have more responsibilities, and they are basically not to stand in the way. Does that streamlining mean that local councils are going to be more powerful as long as they do what you tell them?
Well, kind of, in a way, yes. But it'll be part of a consultation with them. So, first of all, our national planning...
you're not going to consult... If you're telling them today, it's perfectly reasonable, you're the boss. If you're telling them today, we're consulting you, but at the end of the day, you're going to do what you tell you, what we tell you. That's a clear message from Angela Rayner. So
let me say it simply. I consulted on the National Planning Policy Framework from July when we were elected. Next week, I will be outlining that structure. So it'll be clarity from the centre. Mandatory targets for local councils mean they have to have a local plan, and that will be developed with local people. So therefore, the planning nationally with the local plan means that we all know what the strategy is, we all know where the development is going to be. There is no need then for things to be constantly clogged up in a system that is causing chaos. So people know where we're going and they know the destination, they've inputted into that process, and then we're going to deliver the homes we need.
Look, I get the rhetoric, but in the end, what happens when they say, OK, Angela, we love it, we love the plan, but you know what? We cannot build this number of houses in this place because we won't have it. Well, are you going to tell them you're going to do it?
They've got mandatory housing targets, so they're going to develop a local plan. The system
but what happens if they don't hit the plan? What are you going to do?
Let me be clear. The system at the moment that we inherited, because the Conservatives took away local housing targets and mandatory plans, means that we have speculative development at the moment where they can get permitted development rights and go onto the Greenbelt, build houses that people in the local area didn't want. This will be an engagement and a plan that has been agreed.
Look, I know you're going to
we can take it forward.
Look, I love all the diplomacy, but let's get down to the point where you say, your borough council's Tameside, you say to Tameside, who, by the way, have got a very efficient process. Tameside says to you, yeah, but we can't put 100 homes there. We're just not going to do it. And you say, I do want you to put them there. Who wins? Will you just instruct them?
So me as Housing Secretary sets out the national framework. Then local Tameside puts a local plan together that says, here's our brownfield sites, here's where we can build houses.
But you're not telling...
And then developers say, this is where we want to build. And if they are building within the local plan and the MPPF, they will get a fast-track process. If they say, actually, I don't want... A developer says, I'm not following your local plan, I'm not following the MPPF,
I'm talking about the local
has to then have to have consultation.
I am asking you, what happens if they say to you, we do not agree with you? Does your new streamlining mean that you're going to say to them, yeah, you might not agree, but you're going to do it anyway? And if you don't do it, what are the sanctions?
Trevor, they have to have a local plan. It's compulsory.
I'm not talking about the local plan. There's actual decisions.
Yeah, of course, you're missing the point.
And they don't hit the plan. What happens if they don't hit the plan?
Well, you're missing the point. So they have to...
I don't think so.
No, they have to have... That it's compulsory under our new MPPF for them to have a local plan. So councillors and councils will identify areas for development.
I'm not asking
and
about
then
the
it goes
plan.
forward.
I'm not talking about intention. I'm talking about your boss's favourite word, delivery. If they say they cannot deliver this or will not deliver it, what are you going to do?
They have to compulsory have the plan.
But what happens if they say, no, I'm not going to do it? What are you going to do?
Well, ultimately, if they don't have a local plan, then we will have to look at delivery. But they will have a local plan because they know that that's what they need to do. Councils are going to say, we have to have a local plan. We will deliver a local plan.
They can have as many plans as you like. OK, but what I'm hearing is that there'll be councils who will stand in your way. But let's deal with some of the actual... objectives you've got. You do know, by the way, you're saying 1.5 million homes.
Yes.
Is this incredibly ambitious? Have a look at this graphic. You can see here that actually, if you hit your target, you're only going to deliver an extra 9 homes per 1,000 people. Not very much, is it?
Well, as we said before, Trevor, we haven't seen house building on this scale since the 1950s after the Second World War. It is an incredibly ambitious programme, but we're determined to deliver it. That's around planning reform, so we get these systems up and running quicker. Many developments are always stuck and clogged in the planning system. We have to have the infrastructure alongside that. That's why we're focusing ministers and our planning reforms later this year into making sure that national infrastructure is part of that programme. And we're making sure we're injecting more money into the Affordable Homes Programme and house building. Well,
look, let me see if I can be helpful here. It would speed things up if some of the reasons for objections were removed. For example, in your own borough, housing developments have been stopped on the grounds that they're shading somebody else's land, or that they don't quite fit in with the local ambience and so on. Are you going to take out some of the conditions by which people can object and stop development?
Yes, and that's why we're coming forward next week with the national plan.
Give me a couple of examples. Oh, great! Give me a couple of examples of things that aren't going to be reasons to object.
So we're clarifying the national planning policy framework, which you'll see next week, which has clear guidance, which will mean that if they meet the environmental standards, don't worry, they still have to be beautiful, and that's all still in there. But actually, it's about unblocking some of the subjective reasons as to why planning doesn't go ahead.
This is really interesting. So, for example, this is on big projects, but housing. Sir John Arnott, the boss of the National Infrastructure Commission, pointed out that there are a whole bunch of projects that were stopped because of the protection of the black-legged kittiwake. So, under Angela Rayner, the black-legged kittiwake now needs to look to its future because it's not going to stop housing.
Well, environmental factors will be taken into account, but we can't have a situation where we have a desperate housing crisis and we can't resolve things like nutrient neutrality, which we believe we can, and making sure that we can make sure that nature's protected. But we can't have a situation where we can't build those houses. So there's mitigations you can make, but I cannot accept the situation as it stands currently.
So seriously, some of these regulations are going to go, as far as you're concerned. They've got to go.
There will be clarity to ensure that we don't see buildings stalled for years and years. And you will see that next week. We are being very punchy about it because we will build the homes that we desperately need.
You say you're being punchy, but this is not very Angela Rayner. Why can't you just say, look, guys, the newts, the black-legged kittiwakes, the bats, you're going to have to take second place to getting houses for people?
Well, I believe we can offset, look after them, but at the same time not stop building.
All right.
Because we can't have a situation where a newt's more protected than people who desperately need housing. What we need is a process which says protect the nature and wildlife, but not at the expense of us building the houses we need. We could do both.
All right, let me ask you about another element of this. On the present densities, you're going to add 3.4 million, or homes for 3.4 million people with your 1.5 million houses. On your own figures, we're also going to add to our population 2.5 million people over this same period. Are you content that more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants?
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the case.
That's what will happen?
Well, that's not the reality, because
where the 2.5 million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up? Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially social
hang on. You can't,
homes
on the one hand,
building,
say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, they will be there for people who desperately need them, local people. We've already outlined how we're going to support veterans and people who are fleeing domestic violence.
Okay.
Councils need homes for people that are on the waiting list. I've already announced changes to the right to buy, making sure they
but this doesn't quite make sense.
So that we can deliver the houses they desperately need.
Deputy Prime Minister, it doesn't quite make sense. You start the interview by telling me that there's a housing crisis. When I remind you that you have said yourselves as a government, we're going to need 2.5 million migrants. Some of them, by the way, people are going to build the houses. Suddenly, there's a lot of housing. Where are these people going to go?
Well, Trevor, first of all, when you say about building as well, the previous government did use migrant labour far too much instead of actually building skills here in the UK. I've announced £140 million for new construction hubs so that we can train people here to deliver those housing. So I don't accept that we're going to bring migrants in for that. We've always said that actually we need to skill our own people up. But equally, we need to build the homes that people need. Nobody's had a focus on social housing for a generation, and I'm going to build those homes because far too many people at the moment are waiting on council housing lists, and I've got to fix that.
I really wish we had more time. Come back and talk more about it when you've started building some houses. Angela Rayner,
I will.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.